Hi there, I'm Shane Olson from 3DToons.com, and in today's episode, we're going to be learning all about Sculptris. Sculptris is free digital sculpting software brought to you by the same people who brought you ZBrush. So if you wanted to try digital sculpting, but you were not quite ready to make that plunge and purchase ZBrush, well, Sculptris is perfect because it's free and it allows you to get your feet wet. So head on over to pixelogic.com/Sculptris. Click on the free download button, fill in all your information, pick your operating system, install it, and then start this video back up and I'll show you how to use it. So let's get sculpting.
So after you get Sculptris installed, it should look something like this. I've put a custom background image in my background here, and the way you do that is if you go to Options, click on Background, you can go find an image and use it as your background. Now I recommend making an image first that is the size of the resolution of your monitor, and if it's that size then it'll fit in here perfectly. That way you can put an image back here of your concept art if you'd like. I just thought I'd put a nicer blue background with my logo back here while I do this video. So every time you start Sculptris, you'll start with a sphere like this. And what's nice about this, it's a really nice gateway into 3D sculpting and to see if you're going to even like to sculpt in 3D, or if you like the navigation and how the brushes behave, especially if you're coming from a program like Maya or 3D Studio Max. You'll want to make sure that you're comfortable with it, and you can get comfortable with it over time. It just takes some practice. So I'll briefly go over some of these brushes up here. These are all brushes just like inside ZBrush. They behave a little differently, but overall they're the same. And you'll see my icon here. It's a circle. That just means that's the brush size, and this line is your symmetry line, so anything you do over here is going to be mirrored over here. And to navigate, I'm using a pen, a Wacom tablet, and so if I just go anywhere and click and hold, it's going to rotate. And if I hold Alt and do the same thing, it's going to pan the camera around. And if I hold Control, it's going to zoom in and out if I go up and down. Okay, so that's your basic navigation controls with a pen. It's the same with a mouse. You're just going to left click. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is try out these brushes here. There's 3 global brushes like Rotate, Scale, and Grab. So if you hit rotate, it's going to rotate the whole, it's going to rotate wherever you click, and then the brush size. If you turn on global, it's going to rotate the entire object. And that's the same with scale. So you can scale the whole thing in that area, or if you push global, it's going to scale the whole thing. Okay. And then finally grab. This is the brush I use the most, because if I turn on global, I'll just move the whole sphere. Okay, and if I turn it off, I'm going to make my brush larger, and how I do that is it uses I use the bracket keys on the keyboard to go up and down, just like in Photoshop. Okay, there's also a shortcut. If you hold down spacebar, this little guy pops up, and it has strength, size, and detail. I'll explain detail in a bit, and brush mask, but I use strength and size the most. So if I just click anywhere outside here, it's going to adjust the strength. If I go left and right, if I go up and down, it's going to adjust the size. I can click exactly on this little ball and move it, and it works the same. But just know that if you go up and down, it's size, left and right is strength. Sometimes it doesn't always work. Anyway, so now that I have it bigger, I can click and drag on the surface and pull it out like this. So what's happening with Sculptris that doesn't necessarily happen with ZBrush is if I go over here and I push wireframe, or I can push W, you can see that the entire thing is made up of triangles. There's not a single quad on this whole sphere. And the reason why is because it tessellates as it goes. So if I grab this area and move it, you can see how it's adding triangles as I go. And it'll do that forever, which is really fun, because it's just like adding clay for as long as you want. So if you're familiar with Dynamesh, it's similar to Dynamesh, but Dynamesh doesn't tessellate as you go. And that's grab, and I use that the most. And the reason why is because it's very fun to start out by grabbing and moving and finding shapes. So say if I want to find say a jawline of a guy, if I can really quickly edit and find face shapes. I can push things in and out. If I want it, I can make him have a bigger head. It's just really fun and fast to make large edits across the surface. So maybe we can give this guy a really long head like this. Then like say if I wanted to make a neck, I could pull this out like this, and you'll see how it kind of pinches as I pull. There's another brush called Inflate right here, where you can push C and make my brush size a little bigger, and you can just barely paint on the surface and it will inflate that out. So if I turn wireframe back on, you can kind of see what's going on. And I can do that on the chin too, and it'll tessellate that area, adding detail where I need it. So far so good. And I can do the same thing if I want a nose. I just grab my grab brush, I just pull out a nose, and what's fun is I can test it. So from the side I'm like, well, do I want the nose there? Do I want him to have a high nose up here? Do I want him to have a bigger nose? And to undo, I'm just pushing Control Z like in any other program. So, or I can come down like this, give him a big beaky beak, or just a little tiny thing. Whoop. If you go on the outside of the line, it's going to make two of them. So you want to try and be right on that midline. Maybe we'll... Okay, so let's give him a kind of a big nose here. Yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to inflate the end just to add a little bit of surface detail. When you inflate it, adds some more triangles as you go. Now, there's this really fun brush called the crease brush. And what that does is it makes a line. It kind of digs in, kind of carves into your surface like this. So if I wanted to make him have a big nostril or something like that, you can just push and carve into the surface. It's really nice. And then I can come back with my inflate brush, shrink the size a little bit. As you can see, I prefer the bracket keys instead of the shortcut. I'm just because I'm used to ZBrush doing it that way. And then you can come in and inflate. So this behaves a lot like ZBrush, but the tessellation makes the surface a little looser, and the sculpt feeling is not the same. It's close, but there's something missing. And the surface undulates a lot. In ZBrush, it's a lot smoother, just because of how it works with the tessellation. So to smooth the surface, you'll want to hold down Shift. Shift. Let's turn wireframe back on. So Shift. See the reason it's going down quickly when I smooth right here is because there aren't very many triangles right here. So the more triangles in an area there are, the slower it is to smooth, because there's more information to average out. That's what smooth does. It averages out the vertices, these little dots that make up the triangles. So as you're smoothing, it's slower. It's also quicker if you're out on an end like this versus on a flat surface. On a flat surface it takes longer to smooth. Okay, so you can also use this brush called Reduce. Reduce will reduce the number of triangles in an area. So since I put this crease here, it added a lot of detail, and it feathered the detail out. And say I want to come back in and reduce that detail, you just go over it with the reduce brush and it will reduce it down. Okay, we'll turn that back off. Let's see, let's go through these. So you've seen crease. There's also an inverse way of using crease. So if you hold down Alt, it will do the inverse. So it'll make it come out instead of go in. Okay, so you can just try all different ways of using that. I use it all the time. Then the next brush is Draw. Now Draw will just kind of lay a tube down on the surface. I actually have clay turned on, so it adds a tube kind of like that. And you can hold Alt down and it will dig into the surface like that. It's kind of fun, but I really like to turn clay on. Softness doesn't make that big of a difference that I notice, so I really don't pay attention to soft. But if I turn clay on, it's going to cap off the surface. It still does a tube, but it's like a flat tube. And I use this to build up the clay more. So, like say if I want to paint the tip of this nose here, let's see what it's doing. See, when I look how much detail it's adding when I do this. I can come back and with my reduce brush and reduce it back down. And reducing is kind of smoothing too. So now I have more detail. It's a little undulaty. Okay. So now that I have that, I can come in. There's another brush called Flatten. Okay, and how Flatten works is it will take the first surface that you touch and start to flatten your clay. Can you see that? And you can turn on lock plane, and it will just lock whatever plane you start with. If that makes sense. So it'll lock the plane that you first touch, and then as you go, it won't follow the surface, it'll follow the plane. So we'll turn that off. Now the next one is pinch. The pinch is just kind of a cleanup brush. So you can take your crease that we made before, and then we can pinch it. And what that does is it tightens it up, cleans it up. Okay. So it, like I said, it doesn't clean it up as tight as ZBrush would, but it does a pretty good job. So now that we have that, let's talk about there's smooth brush. I've already shown you smooth brush. Smooth is just when you hold down Shift, it'll smooth. So if you want to actually click that brush and smooth, you can do that too. It'll smooth it out. Okay, let's go back to grab. We're going to talk about masking really quick. To make his mouth, to mask, you hold down Control and draw, and it will draw like a black mask on the surface. And basically what you're doing is you're telling Sculptris, I don't want to touch this area right here. Okay? So you're just basically masking off an area that you don't want to sculpt on. Okay? So basically what I'm doing is I'm masking out the upper lip because I want to pull the lower lip out. So I'm going to get a brush that will touch the lower lip but won't go too high and affect this. Actually, I'm just going to mask this off just in case, okay? So I can make a little bit bigger brush, and I'm going to pull this out. Give him kind of a bucket lip. If he didn't have that big of a nose, he'd catch rain. Okay, and I'm going to pull this chin out a little more. Okay, and then I'm going to clear the mask, and to clear the mask you just hold down Control and drag off of the surface and it will clear the mask. And if you want to invert the mask, all you have to do is hit Control and tap on the outside. Just try tapping, it'll invert the mask. Like to clear it, you just click and drag. Okay, so we have the starting of our mouth, and let's see here. I'm going to go grab the pinch brush, and I'm going to pinch along this surface here and see what it does. Just trying to clean up that lip a little bit. Okay. Now I want to make an area for the eyes, where the eyes will go. And I'm going to go back to the trusty grab brush, and I'm going to drag in where the eyes would go. And I'm going to push towards the nose and start to create a socket. And then I'm going to smooth it back out and push. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a nice ridge line that goes from the brow down the nose and across. So we have a nice flow. And I don't want to ruin the flow that we have going down the forehead, down the nose. Okay. And then I want to pull the eye socket back enough that an eye can sit in there nicely. We'll push it. Just push it around. We're messing around with our nostril here. It's pretty big, so. Okay, now that we have that, I'm going to go back to my pinch brush, and I'm going to run pinch along this brow line here. Okay. Then I'm going to go back to grab, and I'm going to drag this. Actually, let's try inflate. Let's see if we can get a good result with inflate. I want to inflate that brow so it's got some more volume to it. This guy has no head volume. It just drops right off after the brows, which is kind of fun. For the ears, usually ears go from the top of the eye to the bottom of the nose. That's where they hook in. But in a cartoon, you can kind of put them anywhere, just as long as you like the way they look and where they go. So let's turn on grab, and let's look at it from the front. I think I want it like down in this area somewhere. I'm just pulling it out to kind of get an idea of what it would look like. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so now that this is pulled out, I can start forming the ear, pulling it back. It's just as easy as that. It's just tessellating as I pull it out and just make that ear shape. Then I can come back here and smooth it into the head. Yeah, something like that. Now to add the eyes, all I have to do is there's a button right here that says New Sphere. And I click on that and it'll say, do you want to do a new scene or add an object? And I'll just click Add an Object, and it'll give me these giant spheres, and I just click on the surface and it'll just add them in there. Then I go to that global scale that we talked about earlier. I just click and drag on that and scale them down. Then you can go back to grab and pull them into the head like this. It has kind of big eyes. I'm going to make them a little smaller. Maybe not that small. Okay. Now we talked about inverting the mask. I'm going to hit Control and just tap. So now I won't affect the eye. And I'm going to build up some eyelids. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the clay draw, and I'm going to work on building up some lids here. Now it won't affect the surface underneath that eyeball, so you kind of just have to go along the edge and pull a lid down across the eye like this to kind of build up some eyelids. And I'm going to do the same thing to the lower eyelid. Just kind of go back and forth and build up that volume. It's okay if it looks messy right now. We'll fix it. We just want to get the clay there and kind of going around the eye. Okay, I'm going to go back to my grab brush. Whoop, okay, that's why. So it's on global. I just need to turn global off. I'm going to smooth this out a little bit. Now I'm going to use the crease brush to start cleaning this up. So I want to have a lip to the edge of the eyelid. So I'm going to drag that, just leaving a little bit of space between the actual eyeball and the eyelid. And I'm holding down Alt so it pulls it out. Then I want to push in and just go along that crease. Again, and drag the eyelid out, and then I'm going to do the same thing with this lower eyelid, holding down Alt, pulling it up so there's kind of a ledge, and then coming back without holding Alt and cutting in a crease to create that lower lid. Might be kind of fun to give him an eye bag, so let's turn on Draw Clay again. Maybe build up a little bit of an eye bag under here. And then come back in with Crease. And tighten that up. Here we go. Okay, now I can get clay again and just hold down Alt and start pushing in the details of the ear if I want. Start to create a surface. Every time you lift up and push down, it's going to push even deeper down into the ear there. So I want it deeper down in here, and I'm going to actually kind of make a hole. It's kind of fun. And then I want a ridge right here, so I'm going to grab the crease brush again and just put a little ridge through here. Then I don't like the volume on where it connects to the head. See, that's really thin and kind of flat there. So I'm going to grab the inflate brush and inflate that edge and bring it up. Yeah, something like that. Okay, that works. And I usually do a thing on the back of the ear where I create like a cup where it connects with the head. So I'm just going to, that's too small of a brush. I'm going to make the brush a little bigger. There we go. Just kind of make a cup there. Smooth it back down. Then I come in with crease. I crease around that cup just to create some interest where that connection is made, and then smooth it back down. And I'm not going to create a shirt or anything, but if I was going to do that, what I would do is I would just add another sphere and then bring it in here and then put his neck inside the shirt. But I'm just showing you how far you can get with Sculptris. You can do with Sculptris and try it for free without having to, fork out the money for ZBrush. You can try it and see if you like it. I like ZBrush a lot, and I like Sculptris a lot. I like ZBrush a lot better because it has so many more tools. This is just a basic sculpting program to get your feet wet and see if you're actually going to like it. So what I really like about it is you can just try stuff. You can say, what's it going to look like if you had a cone head, right? Or what's it going to look like if you had a gigantic noggin? Is it going to be better, worse? You can just try a whole bunch of different things. So it's kind of like concepting in 3D. Okay, now when you're done with all this, actually let me detail out his eye a little bit. Let's grab let's turn on wireframe. Yeah, see, it's pretty low in geometry. So let's grab the crease brush, maybe flatten, and let's flatten this eye out. I'm going to turn on wireframe to make sure we can get the detail we want. I'm going to get the draw. I'm going to go, whoops, too fast. Okay, I got to turn clay on, that's why. Okay, there we go. That's kind of what I want. Maybe I'll have him looking down a little bit. There we go. Then I'll shrink it. Let's see, I'm going to do some pinching around this so it'll add more detail. Then push this in for a pupil and pinch it again just to add more detail there. Okay, like I said, Sculptris isn't the cleanest. You can get it fairly clean, but it's kind of tough to do. With ZBrush it's a lot easier. Okay, just moving that out of there. Give him kind of an expression. I want to pull this eyebrow out just a little bit more. And maybe even give him a little bit of an eyebrow. Okay, so when you're all done, when you're comfortable with it and you like what it looks like, you can take it to the paint module. And what's different about Sculptris versus ZBrush is when you want to paint on the surface, you actually have to be done sculpting. So let me reduce a little bit right here. This eye's bugging me a little bit. Okay. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take our model over to the paint module to get it painted. Now that's a little different than ZBrush. ZBrush you can paint while you're sculpting, but with Sculptris, since it's made out of triangles, and Sculptris will need to create UVs in order to tell the paint where to go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hit this paint button, and I just stick with the 512 resolution, hit OK. It's going to build UVs. Then once in the paint area, you're going to have a checkered surface. And that's just describing the areas where the UVs go. And you can see some seams, and those are UV seams. That's just the way Sculptris does things. So you need to be careful where those seams are, because when you're smoothing your color, sometimes it won't smooth across those seams. So you need to be kind of careful. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're just going to find a base color. So you click on this color here, and you can just go find one that you like. We'll just make this guy just a Caucasian dude. And then there's this button called Fill. You just hit Fill. That's a little pink. Let's go. Okay, let's try it again. Fill. That's a little better. Just some warm tone. Maybe even a little more, or let's a little yellower, a little less red. Try it again. There we go. Okay. So now we have our base colors. Let's go in here. I haven't quite figured out how to mask off different objects. I would really like to find out. So if you know how, please leave it in the comments. But for now, I'm just going to try and hand paint that eyeball in there. Okay, so I'm gonna get close and just paint as best as I can up in here without painting on the eyelid. Looks like I went a little over there. That's all right. I'll come back. I also don't know how to eyedrop colors, so if any of you guys know how to do that, please leave it in the comments. I don't use Sculptris that much, so I just wanted to show you guys that it's out there and it's available. Easy, free way to start sculpting. You can also hold down Shift to smooth the color, and it'll blend the color into its neighbor. ZBrush will do that too. It's really nice. Okay, so let's pick a black color for the pupil here. Make that pupil black, and let's give him blue eyes. Maybe. Let's find a good blue. Alright, that works. Guess I should have painted that first. Let's see. I'm going to put a little highlight in the bottom of his eye. It's a little too teal. Just want to go lighter. So here's your color that you're working on. Okay. It's a little too gray. Sorry, bear with me here. I'm almost done. That works. Then I need to go darker. It's just kind of faking shadows here. Paint that pupil back in. Okay. Zoom out, see what it looks like. Not bad. Then what I can do is go back and get that skin tone again, but this time go a little darker. Okay, and then we're gonna take the strength down and paint in some more shadows, like some eyeshadow. Just a little bit under his eye. Down his nose just a bit. In his ears just a bit. Just the dark areas. Maybe a little under his nose. Under his chin and his neck. And behind his ear. Okay. Then I'm going to paint his eyebrow. I want that pretty dark. Okay, I'm going to turn the strength back up so I get a harder edge. I can blend that a little bit just to make it look like hair. So this is the UV seam I was talking about. See that hard edge? It doesn't quite work how you expect it to. But that's good for now. Give him kind of reddish hair. Then I'm going to just kind of paint in the hairline. Now in ZBrush I'd actually take the time to sculpt the hair, but for this demo I'm just going to paint it in. I'm going to make him kind of a bald guy. Like me. Hair challenged, okay. Now I'm going to, this is the fun part, just add some red to the skin tones. Reddish pink. Turn the strength down. Make the brush big. Just kind of go in and warm him up. This is the fun part because it makes him come alive. A little lighter there. You warm up his ears. Anywhere that's like loose, fleshy bits, like ears and nose, cartilage areas. And his lips. Kind of fun. Now when you get down into the chin area, it tends to go towards blue. Okay, do his neck, red neck. So let's pull it into the blues, the indigos. Then he kind of has a 5 o'clock shadow thing going on. Anywhere there would be stubble, just kind of paint this blue in. Maybe a little up into here. There we go. And I want to paint a little more dark on his eyelids, just to help it out a little bit. And then Sculptris does some weird things too once in a while. Like, see this dark line right here? I don't know where that's coming from. Just the lighting or something. Okay. Just blend this in a little bit. So that's not bad. You can try sculpting in here and see if you like it. The navigation is very, very similar to ZBrush, and the sculpting, the feeling of it is very similar. Like I said, ZBrush has a ton more to offer, but if you're just sculpting and you just want to have fun, I recommend getting in with Sculptris. It's great.
Thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in learning more about the wonderful world of digital sculpting, head on over to 3DToons.com. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter. It's free, and it'll give you access to my ZBrush user interface and all of my custom brushes. And remember, sharing is caring, so please tell all your friends how much fun you've had digital sculpting. Until next time, I'm Shane Olson. Cheers.